There's growing talk now that lawmakers may be looking to pass another round of stimulus before they leave for July recess. Charlie Gasparino has the very latest on what he is hearing. And in a strange way, Charlie, these riots might help the case of these governors and mayors looking for a bailout, right?
Yeah, I mean, looking for the state and city bailouts, and that was on the table a couple of weeks ago. Nancy Pelosi put it out there, obviously the House Speaker. It was kind of Mitch McConnell kind of threw cold water on it, but it still was hovering. And now this is the reaction I'm getting. I'll just tell you how we do these stories. I began my morning by calling my sources at the big banks in the lobbying department that gauges what Congress is doing. And the initial reaction from them is that when they started making their calls, is that there is now, after the weekend, and it was a rough weekend, there is now a growing bipartisan support for additional stimulus. And again, that stimulus could largely mean that Nancy Pelosi wanted $1 trillion for state governments. What they're saying now is that she's going to get something. It's going to have $1 billion on it. It could be as high as $650 billion. Oof. But as of right now, there is talk about money going to states following the looting. And again, it was out there because of the economic impact of the pandemic shutdowns. But this is making it even worse because, as you know, these looting and this rioting is hurting businesses across the country. Just about every major state with big cities is being affected. McConnell has to agree, the Senate Majority Leader, but also the sources I'm talking to are very plugged in with the Republicans. They said, he's probably going to agree to something. What the Democrats will give in return, maybe some degree of liability protection. That's for companies that start reopening. Do they get protected from being sued if their employees, get the coronavirus? Also, another thing on there is that more paychecks could be on the way for Americans. That's also being talked about today. That there could be an additional. Remember, people were given, or families were given, I believe $1,000 or more paychecks. That could come. That's something else that's on the table. Yeah. We should also point out that on Wednesday the Senate and the Congress is likely to ease some of the rules on the PPP loans. So that's on top of what you're hearing now. But again, bipartisan. The talk now is stimulus before the recess. Could be big numbers, and it could be heavily skewed or largely skewed to state governments.
Right. Hey,
David,
Charlie,
back to you.
I got a question quickly. They say that they're going to try to limit, if the money does go out to the states and the cities, prevent any money from paying off the pension funds, which is the big problem for most. But you and I know money is fungible. You can say, okay, no money will go to the pension funds, but they can figure out ways to get it there, can't they?
Yes, and just so you know, David, one thing that I left out of my report, thank you for bringing it up astutely, as you always are. I hear there's going to be less strings attached to this money. That this money will be allowed to be used for various uses. And you're right. It's all fungible. McConnell tried to there was a lot of talk among Republicans to sort of say no money could be used for this, just for certain economic development things. Happen. But I hear there's going to be less handcuffs on this if and when it does happen. At least that's the initial word. We're still weeks away, and they haven't passed anything yet. But that's the quick, I guess, analysis post-weekend rioting.
It makes sense. Charlie Gasparino, the only one who has that story in America today. Charlie, thank you very much. Good stuff.